Welcome to the Sonic Days podcast, home of all things audio. This season was recorded live at Sonic Days 2024. Today we explore how sound, light, and time can transform even the most protected objects in a museum into dynamic, emotionally resonant experiences. Join Jonas Kirkegaard and Birgitte Folmann from Sonic College as they present new approaches to activating high-security glass displays, rethinking how artifacts are staged and experienced through innovative media design.
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you here at Sonic Days at Sonic College. It is a pleasure to meet the new people and old friends. People we are working with in museums and researchers and people who are going to showcase their music during these days. This is the track Sound in Museums, and this is actually the first kind of a hybrid between Sonic Days and the International Network of Sound in Museums, where we put our efforts together to talk about sound in different ways. So, yes, I will just welcome you all again, and I think we will start our presentation. And you will start to present that, but it will be a mix between Jonas and me.
I will talk a little bit about why we want to work with this, and then I will talk a little bit about these glass displays, traditional ones, and then I will show a case from the Vejle Museum. They have an exhibition that opened recently, and so we did a sort of a new type of glass display that is part of that exhibition, and I'll try to illustrate how it works. And the underlying, theoretical thematic of all this is about atmospheres. And then Birgitte will talk a little bit more about how it is that we think this new glass display sort of works with the atmosphere and integrates into that. So, But the first thing I want to mention is Birgitte and I really like to think about museum exhibitions in the terms of atmosphere theory. And we have just wondered that a lot of talk about space in the theory of atmospheres, space, place, sites, and that's also very often how we refer to atmospheres. We talk about a place that has a certain atmosphere. But we had this feeling that even though time is also very often mentioned, then maybe it's not really dealt with that much. It's somehow easier to talk about a physical space somewhere that you can refer to. But actually, the way that atmospheres sort of evolve over time, and when we enter a place that has a certain atmosphere, then it's actually a very temporal thing to grasp this atmosphere and get attuned by it. So this project is also sort of a way to try to work with atmospheres in museum exhibitions from a more temporal perspective. Yes. So just to give an idea of, I think we all know when we get a picture in our head, when we say a glass display, in Danish it's a glasmontre. So it's a very strong indicator of a museum context. So if we see a picture and there's a glass display, then we are very prone to think it's probably a museum. It's an archetype of within the museum design or the exhibition design. And first of all, it is a security device, so it's supposed to protect these rare and old artifacts, both from being stolen and also very often from the climatic stuff. So, And then it seems like also in many exhibitions, the exhibition designers, they will have to organize the layout of the exhibition somehow based on what kind of glass displays they have and how big they are. I think this image shows that in a way that the glass displays plays a crucial role in how the layout of the exhibition is done. And then you could maybe argue that there are a lot of connotations or meanings that come from actually these glass displays. They are of course somehow transparent, but they also signal stuff about the objects that are within them. So they might signal some sort of exclusivity or fragility, and they also somehow gets to work as a border that somehow might tell you as a visitor that this object is really rare, it's from another time, it's very, very far away from the life that you're sort of living, and you have to be really careful, and you definitely can't touch it. If you did, you would there was a risk for you to break it and all that kind of stuff. So the glass displays also introduces some sort of distance. And it's not to say that glass displays are just a bad thing, because personally I also think they add to the mysterious dimension of artifacts. Like you have a feeling that you see something that is really rare and special. So it's just to say there's a lot of meaning in the glass display, but they also have a tendency to sort of evade our attention. So we actually don't really see, like we look what is inside the glass display. So we sort of maybe not really see the glass display in itself, and we don't think about it, but it's still there, and it has a lot of meaning within it. In order to try to work with all these different aspects and maybe try to sort of use the glass display in another way, try to overcome this idea that it sort of encloses and imposes a distance or a barrier between you and the artifact. Then we suggested to Vejle Museerne maybe we should try to because they were anyway building a few new glass displays for this exhibition they were doing. So we suggested that maybe we should try to put some stuff in this glass display that will give it some other opportunity. So we suggested to put a video projector within the base of the glass display, so that it could do video projections inside the bottom of the glass bell on top. And then there's this is from the exhibition in Vejle, so there's this rotating disc, so the artifact can sort of rotate and be controlled by a computer or a controller in the bottom also. And there's also spotlights that can be faded really smoothly up and down. And there's of course loudspeakers on each side, so sound is also an opportunity. And then it has this presence sensor, so when you're within 1 meter of the glass display, it can register that there's a person nearby. So we wanted to use this to maybe in different ways to have the glass display become sort of a tool to get the object more out of the glass display rather than enclosing it. I'll try to illustrate this by I tried to do a video of the exhibition, like a kind of a walkthrough. And it's in order to illustrate how this glass display integrates into this exhibition. And I think it's actually a really nice exhibition. There are a lot of interesting things that the designers did to sort of also create a certain atmosphere. So very briefly, I'm not a historian, and I don't know much about history at all, but it's an exhibition about the first kings of Denmark. So it's from stuff that were found mainly at this Eritsø excavation, and a lot of that stuff is around 1200 years old. So it's a period that you, as I understand, we don't really know that much about it. So they're trying to look at what do we know, and then put this on display in this exhibition. This video introduction is also to sort of give an impression of how it is that, like from a visitor's perspective, what is it actually that you see? What is the first things you see, and how do you decode them? And also in the realm of atmospheres, what are the sensory impressions that you get in this exhibition? So I'll try to focus on that. So the first thing that happens is you see these, there's this comic design where they have these comic illustrations of how they imagine that these people look like from this time. And also the choice of this cartoon layout is also to sort of point towards that we don't know much about this time, so a lot of it is somehow guessing. We're guessing how it was. So that's to illustrate that also. And then you walk through this, there's this hallway, and as you heard, there were these horns that are sort of calling people into the exhibition. And then as you see on the floor, there's like some sort of artificial grass, and there's these wooden planks that you walk on to give a tactile sensation of that you're moving into another sort of mood or atmosphere. And then you go into the first room, and then you're introduced to the characters that this exhibition is trying to describe the period through. And there's a soundscape here also. It's like to be an outdoor courtyard in front of a Viking hall. So there are there's a speaker in the ceiling with birds and stuff, and there are the sounds from the cartoon you can see in the background. There's sort of sounds that support that. Then there's also, there's a lot of different stuff. There's this bench. When we talk about the atmosphere of exhibitions, then there's just this bench where there's actually not that much information. So it's basically just a place where you can sit and contemplate and relax. And actually I've seen quite a few guests actually use this, especially if it's 2 people in the exhibition, then they really like to just sit here for a while and just talk about maybe something inspired by the exhibition or just whatever they feel like. Then there's another thing that I also think is nice. So they have these boards, several places in the exhibition where they sort of it's almost sort of meta information. Here there's a board about where are all the women in this exhibition, because it's mostly men that is in the exhibition. So the designers, they try to also anticipate some of the questions that will probably be asked by the audience about why is the exhibition like this. So here they explain that they just really don't know that much about the women, because the sources, most of them point towards the men in this period. So, and there are other examples of that kind of meta information about the exhibition. So I've tried to add a little bit of comments on the video also. So if kids are here, they can look for these squirrels. They are hidden in the exhibition. I only found one, so clearly I'm not really good at that. I think there are maybe 5 or 6 or something. So this traditional glass display is how we very often see them, like it's just a white box with artifacts in them. There's light on them. Here they also put some magnifying glasses because they're small artifacts, and then text. So that would be what you very often see in the exhibitions. When you have been in this first room, you can say, then you can transition into the next room, and there's another atmosphere in here, another soundscape that is still somehow in tune with the other soundscapes in the exhibition, but it's still, there's another mood in here that is a little bit more intense, maybe you could say, and the soundscape is referring to what is happening in the cartoon on the wall, and there's a lot of different places you can sit, stuff you can listen to, and different types of activities that you can engage with if you want to. There's a puzzle you can do if you want to. It's a tactile experience, more artifacts in glass displays. And then also a thing that they very often do in Vejle is there's this olfactory experience where you can smell some barley, because they found like traces of beer brewing in the excavations also. Then we sort of into the third room where we built 2 of these glass displays. So the first one is placed here. It was the one they saw a picture of before. It's not very clear in this video, but when the glass display is approached, then very, very subtle things will happen. And I think most people won't even notice it. But when you approach it, then when you're within 1 meter of it or so, then the artifact will start turning really slowly, and the lights will also very slowly fade up. So it's sort of like drawing an attention, but in a very, very peripheral and ambient way. And then you will see also there are these animations taking place on the bottom surface there, which are just to also sort of, in an ambient way, maybe draw a little bit of attention, so they are just occurring at random intervals.
Did you say that it's the masterpiece of the exhibition?
I think actually...
The centerpiece.
Yeah.
It's a centerpiece. It's not a masterpiece.
Yeah. Someone might say that. I think actually it's. I think the whole exhibition is really a masterpiece in some ways, and I think the museum are really happy about it. So maybe that's.
Yeah, you didn't say what it is.
Oh yeah, the artifact. Yeah, as I said, I'm not a historian, so I have no idea. Yeah. Well, yeah. I know what it is. It's we can see it just in a few seconds. Because that's probably also it's a very small artifact. You can see it here, and it's rotating. So hopefully also people that approach this glass display, they will ask themselves, what is this? And then they will look at it and maybe try to guess it, but maybe they will also see there's a small hint here that there's actually a button you can push if you want to know more. So if I'm curious enough in the video, I will press the button in a few seconds. And then there's this animation starting that sort of shows what it is. So it's this sort of, I don't know what you call it, like a bracelet or something that was sitting in the end of like the drinking horns that we all know from Viking material. So there's this animation, it's maybe 1 minute, and it sort of shows how this artifact, like it's more of a contextual information video that shows when it was used, in what rituals, and who was using it at this time. I think I'll just leave it here, but there's a lot of other interesting things that has been done in this exhibition also to create atmosphere, to create tactile and sensory stuff that you can engage with. But I think this was like the introduction to this glass display and how we tried to use it. There are many things that could have been done with this glass display to maybe make it more engaging in different ways. But this was sort of like the first test, and it opened a month ago, and we're sort of looking at how people are using it. But we can also talk about that in the end, maybe.
Yes,
so
we'll do that.
yeah.
Jonas took you to the fun part, and I'm taking you to the academic, more tough stuff. But as Jonas has been showing with his pictures and the video from the exhibition, is that a museum is much more than its immediate function and factual dissemination of knowledge. It also encompasses spatial qualities, surfaces, materiality, sounds, smells, light and colors, elements experienced through our bodily presence and which affect us in significant ways. It is not just a matter of museum visitors visiting to become wiser and learn something about art and history, but also that the visitor is in interaction with their surroundings on an affective and aesthetic level. Questions of space, as Jonas also touched upon, in a museum exhibition are often easier to navigate than questions of time, because space is more immediate, tangible experience. Visitors, they can physically interact with objects, they can walk around, they can move around them, and engage with their environment in ways that create a clear, present sense of place. The dimensions of space are fixed and observable, allowing curators to design pathways, lighting, and displays that guide the visitor's journey. In contrast, time is abstract and intangible. Temporality involves not only the sequencing of objects or events, but also the challenge of conveying change, progression, and context over periods that may stretch from minutes to millennia. Time requires storytelling, interpretation, and a deeper engagement with historical and conceptual shifts that may not be easily grasped. Whereas space is something visitors can immediately feel and understand in the moment, time requires mental and emotional effort to reconstruct past events and imagine future possibilities, making it a more complex element to convey effectively in an exhibition setting. Sound, however, sound, as we talk about today, is a temporal phenomenon. And sound plays a leading role in creating temporality in space when it is exhibited in a museum, facilitating dialogic interaction and participation. There are hardly any other public spaces where narratives are as connected to temporal aspects as those in museums. Museums work as temporal laboratories or time transformers where agency and power related to time can be displayed, and sound plays an important role in this. We are coming from a background in sound and atmosphere studies in museums, and we have often wondered why time and temporality is so underrepresented in atmosphere theory compared to the concept of space. Temporality plays a fundamental role in attunement processes, which is a key element in atmosphere formation, and we believe that attention to temporality could address some challenges in atmosphere theory, particularly in developing a methodological framework for atmosphere design. So this is what we actually try to do, is to connect the theory of atmospheres further strongly connected with the concrete work of a design of a high-security glass display. We are, as many others in atmosphere theory, going with the German philosopher Böhme, and we propose to reframe Böhme's concept of radiation. It describes how physical objects exert atmospheric agency through what he calls the ecstasy of things. We are using propagation instead of radiation. Radiation is typically associated with light and something that occurs fast and is affecting everything in an environment instantaneously. The nuance that atmosphere does not form instantaneously might be lost in this framing. And this is why we kind of propose propagation as a better way to imply a perceivable temporal wave-like spread where atmospheric elements meet the agents as sensory affordances at discrete points in time as we move along a given exhibition space. This might seem very rhetorical, but we believe that this temporality of how atmospheres form, transform, and dissolve over time, and how attunement is a crucial part of this process, is essential to our understanding of them. Attunement involves continuous evaluation of sensory stimuli against internal representations, expectations, and memories, which consequently results in motor sensory responses and cognitive processes of meaning-making. Research shows that our perceptual systems are more sensitive to spatial than to temporal inconsistencies when it comes to our vision, when we are seeing, but more sensitive to temporal than spatial inconsistencies when it comes to hearing. So given this fact about our perceptual endowment, it is considerably easier and also more useful for people like us to notice, think about, and talk about the spatial distribution of what we see and the temporal distribution of what we hear rather than vice versa. So this is kind of important for our research methodology, but we haven't included it in this paper. But maybe if you have some questions about how we explore this, how we research this, we can talk about it. Yes. So sound has this great potential to enrich an exhibition's content and modifying its semantic context and enhancing multisensory engagement. Whether sound is sung or sampled, composed or amplified, music and sound are operative forces for shaping feelings into something more. It means that sounds create affect. It is evoking feelings by imbuing a situation with a distinctive atmosphere or mood in an exhibition. And this was maybe what the video gave you a little grasp of, even though it was, if we had time, you should have seen it all and felt it yourself. Yet musical and sonic events not simply impact on the individual listener, but it can also transform situations, commons, and environments. It seems that sound, more than other sensory inputs, has a transformative quality. Sound can create and maintain moods and will often be linked to memories and bodily remembrances by the guests. But even though hearing is internal to the experiencer, sound can, if it's used interpretively as a part of the atmosphere, actually exceed the individual experience. Our research also reveals that focusing on sound as a sensory enhancement in an exhibition makes it possible to generate an embracing experience as a part of the atmosphere, wrapping the visitor, which seems to have a much more lasting effect than the transformation actually accounted for. Auditory cues can be used to produce meaning and make the visitor better able to connect with people, things, and stories from the past. Even though objects from the past have the capacity to give color to the surroundings and exercising a presence by affecting the world around it, the objects in themselves risk to become a distant entity which is much more difficult to relate to for the visitor. The object is not present due to what it holds within it, but through the way its physical constitution extends itself out into space. And the human perceiver is not only present through his or her mental capacities, but through attention to the particular bodily state in which they are present and what they sense when they are being in the museum exhibition. So examining the visitor's sensorial experiences point to that using sound in the exhibitions may not, in fact, be about mirroring the world or connecting to authenticity or to some specific lost place or time. Exhibiting is not necessarily about what the particular object may tell us, but it could be a question of our presence. So while the use of sound as an atmospheric element in exhibitions often aim to increase the experience of being there, like in the example with the kings going 1200 years back, being there, we might benefit from thinking about sound and atmosphere as the generation of an intensified being here, a sense of presence. So again, going with the German philosopher Werner Böhme, we argue that things are not limited to their physical form or extension. The thing can exceed itself and be ecstatic. In an example, if the exhibition of a blue glass vase is alone in a white room, it will present itself a much more effective than if it was displayed among a lot of other glass vases. This is what Böhme called the ecstasy of things, that force us to rethink what we understand of the delineation of physical objects. Instead of focusing on the object as an enclosure, focusing on the atmosphere will point our focus to the object as a physical extension in space. The object is thus not characterized by what it contains, but the way it radiates into space by its ecstasies, is what Böhme says. Conceptualizing atmospheres by applying the theories of Böhme and others in combination with the concept of propagation temporality, we aim to have both a focus on the effect, the guest experience, and on the material grounding in the design of the glass display. We propose that in essence, an atmosphere must be understood as a spatial experience of being attuned in and by a material world. We also aim to include theories of the senses and perception, since atmospheres folds together affect emotion and sensations in space. So we suggest it is not the presence of atmosphere that is in question, but rather, in order to be able to design a new way to exhibit artifacts in museums, we must understand the specificities of particular atmosphere generated in the context of actual designs and the temporal contingencies in relation to which they shift and change, as well as the different ways in which they may be perceived. As Shanti Sumatoyo also noticed, it is completely impossible to predict or predetermine exactly how an atmosphere is unfolding. And that is the pivotal point of the discussion, however. And that is the pivotal point of the discussion, whether it makes sense to even talk about atmospheres as a design artifact. Our hope is here, however, by replacing Böhme's radiation concept with the temporally charged concept of propagation, while undertaking the process of developing the glass display, we hope to move the atmosphere discussion further. In this light, this project can be seen as a direct answer to the call of Sumatoyo and Pink for a closer dialogue between atmosphere theory and empirical work. And now I'm soon finished by talking a little bit of the temporal agency. Though atmospheres are abstract and ephemeral, they are anchored in the configuration of spaces, materials, and the sensory and affective experiences they afford. They are always present, and we constantly attune to them. Focusing on sound components of atmospheres can help to enhance what museum visitors sense, imagine, feel, and remember. By temporality in relation to atmosphere and attunement, we refer to the pace at which individual guests process and internalize impressions, integrating them into their sense of presence and responding with their sensory motor gestures, shifting attention, reflecting, and doing meaning making. While static museum artifacts possess agency, they do not exert temporal agency. They change over time, but primarily in the way the sociologist John Law describes as continuously enacting relational effects, being endlessly generated and potentially reshaped through human encounters. However, our hypothesis is that we can curate and enhance this process, allowing artifacts to contribute varying taxonomic levels of relational effects through sensory and disseminative expressions over time. And now I think, Jonas, you will wrap it all up.
Yeah, I'll do that. So just to maybe, I think this exhibition in Vejle, it opened in a month ago, as I said, and I think what we see, it's very like the things that Birgitte talked about, and also the things about these temporal processes that happen for the visitors. They are somehow difficult to measure. They're even difficult to talk to visitors about if they experience them in that way. But we have done just a few observations, and it seems like that there's no, I could not see any indication that people sort of, when do they notice that this glass display is different than a traditional one? I don't, it's difficult to see, and it's not something that people look at. It's not like a big show. It's not like people looking at it saying, wow, I've never seen that before. So it is very subtle in its way of being in the exhibition. And that was also sort of the goal with it, but I think that like the idea that it sort of starts doing subtle stuff when you're very close to it, it is a way of like giving it some sort of atmospheric temporal agency, you can maybe call it that it is not just static, but it is doing something over time. And then through that, it affords some sort of atmospheric giving affordances that people can maybe attach to when they approach the glass display, and then not everybody presses the button, but some does. And I think also in an exhibition like this, it's very much, there are so many things you can do, so it's almost more, for people it's not a matter of experience everything, it's just a matter of sort of walking through the exhibition and sort of grasping onto the different affordances and then engage with whatever they feel inclined to do. And some of them will feel inclined to engage with the glass displays, and some will not do it. So yeah. We also hope that at least these mediated tools in the glass display, the sound and the video projection and the possibilities to control the light and the rotation, give some tools for also maybe do a new type of dissemination around how these artifacts are presented and come to make meaning in relation to the rest of the exhibition. Yeah, I guess that was that was it.
We're going to research it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.